Very good afternoon. Wednesday, the 31st of August 2022. Thank you to all of you who have joined me during your lunch times. The Manchester Evening News reporter, a lady called Charlotte Green, contacted me last week via email on Friday, I think it was Friday afternoon, just before the bank holiday started, with an extensive list of questions she wanted an answer to, and she wanted the answers by lunchtime, 1 o'clock, I think, today, or 12:30 today, or whatever it was. Well, I'm afraid, Charlotte Green, I do not work to your timetable, nor am I under any obligation to respond to any of your nonsense. So instead, what I am going to do is I am going to exercise my right of reply, not via an email to the Manchester Evening News. I've been on this game before, I've been on this journey before, and I've seen what they do, where they edit and slice and misquote you, and then when you complain to the press standards, the dodgy independent press standards organisation, any organisation who calls themselves independent is neither independent nor has any standards in my experience. So when you complain to them, they come up with any reason possible. And Charlotte Green's previous lead at the Manchester Evening News, a woman called Jennifer Williams, even though the press standards lot defended as much as possible, they were forced to admit two failings. The first failing was she had assumed quotes. That's right, they defended her by saying she'd assumed quotes from me. So she'd just made up quotes, but in their defense they claimed they'd assumed quotes. And another standout line from one of Ipso's responses was, sentence 1 does not link to sentence 2. That's right, sentence 1 does not link to sentence 2, and you should not be drawing any conclusions from what is said in sentence 1 to sentence 2. So if I said, a raving loon sex offender who likes to snort cocaine from the butt cheeks of rent boys, full stop, and then I started the next sentence with the name of a politician, according to Ipso, I'm not making reference to that politician, because sentence 1 does not link to sentence 2. And assuming quotes is acceptable because you'd assumed them. You've not made them up, you've assumed them. Okay? So this is the world I have been dealing in for the last 4 or 5 years now, with the Manchester Evening News, Jennifer Williams, and then Charlotte Green, and a whole host of idiots, Jack Tooth. And that's before we even get to the malicious one. That's even before we get to the malicious one. Now, the problem with Charlotte Green, and this is where I take offence to her, before I get into my right to reply, the problem with Charlotte Green is that she is funded by you. She is funded by the taxpayer. These are BBC-funded posts, the local democracy reporting service. You'll see after her name, it'll say local democracy reporter. The local democracy reporter and the reporting service is paid for by the taxpayer. And Reach PLC, which is a private company for which Charlotte Green and her mates work for, who runs Manchester Evening News and a whole host of these publications, only recently paid its chief executive a total remuneration. So you're paying for their reporters, the taxpayer, whilst they're paying their chief executive total remuneration totaling over £4 million. The man's name is Jim Mullen, and he received over £4 million. But despite him receiving over £4 million in remuneration, the taxpayer, you and I, are paying these people to recruit these local and fund these local democracy reporters. And my understanding is that Reach PLC has 51 of them. 51 of the equivalent of Charlotte Green's based in them. So 51 of them, if you ballpark it, the salary of someone like Charlotte Green will be ballpark £30,000, I reckon. Maybe more, maybe a little bit less, but £30,000 plus the on-cost, the management costs and stuff, it'd be about £50,000. 50,000 times 50, even if you reduced it, you lot are paying these people £2 million a year. Charlotte Green, most recently, there's a man called Warren Bates. He's not here with us yet today. But on Warren Bates' Asby, there's a reference to a local, reporter feeling threatened and intimidated and all the rest of it. Well, she never went to the police. And I was there, along with many of you. Our Warren Bates was speaking to her outside. We watched it from a distance. It looked very amicable. And Charlotte Green headed off on her own way. And Warren came back to chat to us. It then later emerges that Charlotte Green appears to have accused Warren Bates of making her feel harassed and intimidated, and it's one of the reasons why Warren Bates has received one of these Asbys. Of course, it's ridiculous and ludicrous because all of us were there, and if at any point Charlotte Green felt threatened, and there were plenty of women I was stood with at the time, any one of us could have, she could have shouted over to for assistance to anyone. She did nothing of the sort. She went off happily with her rucksack on her back, so you can see what side her more than just her paycheck, where her loyalties are. Furthermore, during the time Sean Fielding was leader of Oldham Council, Charlotte Green wrote an article that headlined in the local newspapers where Sean Fielding accused victims and their families of making up allegations. That's the article they ran with. It was Charlotte Green's article, and that article was published at the same time victims and their families were receiving letters asking them to come forward and give evidence. So that is who Charlotte Green is. She's one of those South Manchester, I call them the fake liberal metropolitan elite. I can't work out for sure whether she lives in Charlton or West Didsbury. It's one of those areas. She likes to skateboard. And I think if you go on her Twitter page, you'll find that one of her most happiest moments was Andy Burnham holding her skateboard up. So they all belong to the same clique of people who have been desperate to cover up this scandal of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children. And let me be very clear before we start, the cover up of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children would not be possible in Oldham in the same way it was not possible in Rochdale, Telford, Barrow, Kirklees, anywhere. It would not be possible if the local media were not complicit. Thank you, Tony. You were there as well. Exactly how it was. No threat whatsoever from Warren. Yeah, we were all there. We saw it. So Charlotte Green wants my responses. Well, Charlotte, this is me exercising my right to reply. I will give you the decency of going through all of your 20 questions the best I can. Here we go. There you go. Dear Rajamir, I would like to put the following points to you. Points. I'm not sure what the word points means, but she'd like to put the following points to me to offer you the right of reply ahead of an article being run in the Manchester Evening News and other partners about your online blogs and campaigning. So, Charlotte, we're very clear. The article is to do with me. Right? And so there can be no ambiguity between sentence 1 and sentence 2 in what you publish, because the article is to do with me, and therefore I and any decent person will only take from this that sentence number 2 is linked to sentence number 1 in what you publish. Okay? The article will focus on your past history dating back to 2012 with the Collective Spirit Multi-Academy Trust and continue until the present day. Would you wish to respond to the following? Question mark. If so, please reply to this email no later than 12 p.m. on Wednesday, the 3rd August the 31st. Well, Charlotte Green, this is my response to you. It is a little bit later, but I don't really care. Question number 1. You have been described as vindictive, a sociopath, and dangerous. Vindictive, a sociopath, and dangerous. Okay, Charlotte, what do you want me to say to that? Who has described me as vindictive, a sociopath, and dangerous? If I was dangerous, what does that even mean? Dangerous to who? Dangerous for what? Vindictive in what way? Who's claimed as vindictive? Who's claimed that I'm vindictive? And so, as terms of a sociopath, is that not a medically analysed condition? As a doctor describe me as a sociopath? Have I been sectioned? By the way, I have no history of any mental health illness whatsoever. So, on what, this is your first question, Ms. Green. The first question you're asking me is, do I want to respond to unnamed people describing me as vindictive, a sociopath, and dangerous? What do you want me to say to that? I can say to you this. I have also been described as a decent man, an honourable member of a community, and an expert in my field of work. So, what do you want me to say? Who's described me as vindictive, a sociopath, and dangerous, and how are they qualified to describe me in these terms? In what way are they qualified? I suspect this, Sally. I very much suspect it is as you described. I am dangerous because I am showing them all up. I am dangerous because I am exposing, and I have exposed, the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of my town's children. And I have done it in a legal way, exercising my democratic right to campaign lawfully and hold politicians to account. And you can tell, can't you? You can tell by the tone of the email where this is going, Oldham. You can tell by the tone of the email where this is going. But let's entertain this. Let's carry on. The claim that you have campaigned on behalf of CSE victims as a means to promote a personal vendetta against the MP Jim McMahon, and B, as a money-making enterprise. Okay, again, Charlotte, you don't tell me who is making this claim. Okay? And I absolutely find it appalling. I genuinely find it appalling that you are sharing this claim with me. And I'll say to you why. First of all, as a personal vendetta against the MP Jim McMahon, and secondly, as a money-making enterprise. Both of these claims are completely unfounded. However, what is founded? And I see you want to go back to 2012, Charlotte. There's no reason why you didn't. Well, why didn't you go back to 22 or 1992? You could have gone back to 1992 if you wanted, Charlotte. Never mind 2012. You could have gone back 20 years prior to that. And I'll tell you why. Charlotte Green. I have spoken out and campaigned against the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children in my hometown for a number of reasons. And these reasons I'll share with you are more credible than any of the crap you've come up with. The first reason is a very selfish reason. Not only is it my hometown, but my daughter is being raised in Oldham. She's now 7 years old, and my daughter is being raised in Oldham. My niece, who's 3 years old, lives in Oldham. My goddaughters, who are 13 and 16, live in Oldham. So I care about the safety of female members of my family and their friends and my friends' children. Okay? That has more credibility than any other crap you've just come up with. The second reason, Charlotte Green, is my position has been from the beginning that the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of working class white girls by Pakistani rape gangs are racially motivated crimes. Position that the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children in my town are racially motivated crimes. If you go and research who I am, Charlotte Green, you will find out that I am one of the country's leading anti-racists in terms of my thinking, my practice, and how I have helped shape race relations in this country. There's no ambiguity there, Charlotte. I am a decorated anti-racist. And as a decorated anti-racist, I object to these racially motivated crimes, and I want to see something done about them. So that's reason number 2, Charlotte Green. And the third reason, Charlotte Green, is again, if you go and look at my bio and what I have professionally done, I have worked for over 30 years of my life, Charlotte Green. For over 30 of my years of my life, I have worked directly with children and young people, particularly vulnerable children and young people. So I have a personal interest and I have a professional interest. And at the end of the day, Charlotte, I care about my town. So those are my reasons why I have campaigned on behalf of CSE. And I believe my reasons have a whole host more credibility than the politicians who I have exposed for failing to protect children. And whatever reasons they come up with. And irrespective, Charlotte, irrespective of what my reasons are or what their reasons are, the reasons on this do not matter. In the end, and gang raped, and these crimes were covered up. Reason number, that's your second point I'd like to have responded to, Miss Green. A victim of abuse describes me as having no decency or respect for victims, saying you will state the full name or first names of survivors and share derogatory views. Many of you have come forward to me as victims, survivors of the grooming gangs. I have not named a single one of you. I have kept your anonymity. The only person who has been named is Samantha. By me, the only person who's been named by me is Samantha, and that was with Samantha's permission. Not more so than Samantha's permission, Charlotte. Samantha, as your own newspapers have published, she gave up her lifelong right to anonymity. Your own newspaper, Reach PLC, in its articles have published that she gave up her right to anonymity, and you have published her name. Long before I came along, Charlotte Green, your newspapers have published her name. As for having no decency or respect for victims, many of you listened to my interview with Child A, who was denied her right to have her story shared in Burnham's assurance review. Those of you who've listened to that, would you say I had no decency or respect? And please show me anywhere, give me an example anywhere where I've shared derogatory views towards the survivors of the grooming gangs. I'll tell you who shared a derogatory view. It's the leader of Oldham Council in a council meeting where she stood up and said, you can't say it's destroyed their lives because it hasn't. That is what I consider to be a derogatory view. I found that view appalling. So please, if you believe I've shared a derogatory view, tell me where. If you believe I have no decency or respect for victims, show me where. And if you claim I will state the full name or first names of survivors, show me where, apart from Samantha, and Samantha had already waived her right to lifetime anonymity as your own newspapers published her name. Point number 4. That you took credit for co-writing a letter written to Sean Fielding in 2019 outlining the case of one victim and asking for it to be investigated. The partner of the author of the letter, and again this is Samantha, who took their own life, so this is Stephen, says you played no part in writing this letter. For those who are coming new to me, my name is Raja Mia. Long before this, and coming back to my hometown of Oldham, I was working across the world on counter-terrorism issues. I was advising government, and I am the best at what I do. Stephen Walker Roberts. That was her husband's name. This is my WhatsApp exchange with him, dating back to the 12th of November 2019. You can see it there, the 12th of November 2019. Good evening, Stephen. Your very brave wife passed me on your contact details. Would you let me know when would be a good time to call you? Thanks, Raja. Hi, Raja. I'm just feeding my boys. I should be able to call you in the next half hour if that works for you. Sure. Hi, Raja. It's Stephen from yesterday. Apologies for cold calling. I've managed to onboard the press for a release tomorrow evening, presently drafting a letter. I've had some information I wanted to discuss with you. Hi, Raja. What's your email address? Sent email. Got it, thanks. And here we go. Keith Faz, letter dated the 23rd of November. Whole host of questions, exchanges I have with him, helping him shape and formulate. Helping him shape and formulate the letter, and then tag teaming this letter with the ITV news story that went out, connecting the ITV lot with Hughie MacDonald, who at the same time gave an interview. At the same time, Stephen and Samantha gave an interview. It's all here. It's all here in the, you can see, look, I sent him Hughie MacDonald's the contact details. It's all here. And of course, what doesn't work for these people is then this. I published this to tag team with Stephen's work and get him the most exposure possible, which is sharing Sam's story. And you can see at the end of Sam's story is the actual email dated the 22nd of November 2019. So, Charlotte Green, would you like to continue with this nonsense that I took credit for co-writing a letter with Stephen to Sean Fielding in 2019 outlining the case of one victim and asking for it to be investigated? Would you like to proceed with that completely outrageous lie? And this is where it's actually, I find it really repulsive. All of you who've been following me and working with me on this know that I am the last to step forward and try and take credit for anything. I am the last. to take credit for any of this. But go on, Charlotte, publish away. I have hundreds of text message exchanges, email exchanges, and that's without the hours and hours and hours I spent on the phone with Stephen. So that's number 4 done. So this isn't even, this is Samantha claiming to the Manchester Evening News that I played no part in writing the letter, when the letter was written by her husband who'd been speaking to me. And I'm still reluctant to criticise Samantha or draw her in because I think she's damaged with everything that went on. I don't, But if Charlotte Green and her friends wants to use a survivor, by the way, who has no faith in the police and wants an independent investigation from a different police force, if she wants to use a young woman like her and manipulate that to try and attack me, go ahead. Oh, it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That a serious case review carried out by Manchester Safeguarding Board, published in 2020, concerning a pupil with learning needs at Collective Spirit School, found that a lack of records held by the free school upon its closure meant CPS did not pursue a case against the girl's abusive step-grandfather. So what Charlotte is trying to say here is that I have no right to raise concerns because she's trying to claim that I'm somehow responsible in failing children. Well, Charlotte, did the serious case review carried out by Manchester Safeguarding Board, published in 2020, in any way reference any failing on my account, either directly or indirectly? I think you'll find it did not. No such thing whatsoever. No such thing whatsoever. Now, this may have happened, it may not have happened, because I have no idea. Because I wasn't there. I'd long gone. Not a single teacher, not a single safeguarding specialist, not the DFE, not the police, no one is trying to say I had anything to do with this apart from Jim McMahon, in a desperate attempt to say, oh, look at what he's failed over there, when it had nothing to do with me in any shape or form whatsoever. I was long gone. Now, if you want to publish this, Charlotte Green, on an article that's specifically about me, there is no ambiguity here. You will be writing that somehow I have some involvement in this when you have no evidence whatsoever, and no one in a position of authority anywhere has claimed I am in any way involved. This is just desperate mudslinging by a Labour Party loyalist. That an investigation by the Education and Skills Funding Agency, published in 2019, into allegations of financial irregularity and non-compliance with Academy financial rules at Collective Spirit, chiefly relating to invoices received from a company called Collective Spirit Community Trust Limited, found significant breaches of the Academy's financial handbook and a breach of the Companies Act 2006. Go and read the report. Go and read the investigation by the Education and Skills Funding Agency report, published in 2019. You will find that it found me at fault for nothing. Because if it had found me at fault for anything, it would have named me as responsible for something. The government's own report cleared me. The government's own report cleared me. But you, Jim McMahon, and your mates aren't satisfied. And again, you've written about this time after time after time. Why is there something new that's emerged on this Charlotte Green? No. You're writing this and trying to mudsling at me. You're trying to mudsling at me. The report, issues that you make reference to, significant breaches, whatever, financial irregularities, there is nothing in that report that links any of those things to me. You've tried. Jim McMahon went to the serious fraud squad and failed to have me prosecuted. They went to the Inland Revenue. Remember, I was meant to have stolen £12 million, or something. The Inland Revenue gave me money back. They owed me money on my taxes. Desperation. Charlotte Green's desperation. Number 7. That national media reports identify Shabir Ahmed as an employee of Oldham Council as early as 2012. So what she's trying to do is take credit away and say, you didn't report Shabir Ahmed, it was already in the newspapers. Charlotte. When I brought to public attention that Shabir Ahmed worked for Oldham Council, at the same time, I brought to public attention that not only, go and listen to all of the things I've said, you'll see me use this phrase repeatedly. Not only did Shabir Ahmed work for Oldham Council, he was also a member of the Labour Party. Not only did Shabir Ahmed work for Oldham Council, he was also a member of the Labour Party. Not only did Shabir Ahmed work for Oldham Council, and not only was he also a member of the Labour Party, but in his role working for Oldham Council, he had access to vulnerable children and their families. All of that has now been proven, confirmed 100%, as also confirmed that the police and the council between them mysteriously failed to investigate Shabir Ahmed. And if they'd done their jobs as the way they were meant to have done their jobs, then children would most likely have been safeguarding from being raped. It's in the report. So no, Charlotte Green, I did not just report that Shabir Ahmed was an employee for Oldham Council. I also connected the dots that he was a member of the Labour Party, and in his role working for Oldham Council, he had access to vulnerable children and families. Question number 8. That you stated you would not take part in this farce of an inquiry in its current form, in reference to the assurance review carried out by Malcolm Newsom and Gary Ridgway, and that you said you would provide testimony only on several conditions, the main one being that his evidence, being I presume my evidence is what you mean, was heard in public. So she's got that from Ridgway. You can tell. And she's just copied and pasted it. The inquiry was a farce. Politicians from all opposition parties are now calling for a public inquiry. I refused to give evidence in the way they were, or give testimony in the way they wanted. And it's very well publicised why I refused. It's because they had someone there who was taking selected handwritten notes of witness statements. And these handwritten notes were then interpreted how Ridgway and Newsom saw fit and presented back to witnesses to sign off. The testimonies were not accurate. And the main reason, the main condition I said, was record the testimonies. So there can be no ambiguity. Record the testimonies and publish the full transcripts of the testimonies as an appendix. Neither Ridgway nor Newsom would record the testimonies. Why do you think? Why do you think? And in that context, I said, I'm happy to give testimony in public so other people, such as all of you listening here now, can hear exactly what I've said and my words can't be twisted. That you have been accused of piggybacking on the issue of grooming. Let's do two of them first. The two bits, let's split them. Piggybacking on the issue of grooming. Prior to me releasing a dossier of emails around the now confirmed grooming gangs operating out of shisha bars, most of you did not know about it. Piggybacking means it's already going on and I've joined the bandwagon. Now, I grabbed hold of an issue that had been successfully covered up, that people were too scared to speak out on for fear of being branded racist, where children had been demonized, left behind and forgotten about, and I made it into something that forced the review and now the calls for the public inquiry. Piggyback means I jumped on it and other people did the work. No. I am very clear as to who's done the work and who's led this work, which is why you are picking on me if I was piggyback on this. And for financial gain, Charlotte Green, do you get paid a wage for writing your stuff? Where is my financial gain? Have I written a book off it? I've had police officers hammer down my door. I've got one trial outstanding. I've had death threats. I've had people you are aligned with, Charlotte Green, allege that I'm a child sex offender. And they've published my name and my address and my picture of my front door online. And as for Jim McMahon, said in the House of Commons, there's a reason why he said in the House of Commons of my commitment to children and young people and anti-racism, which is this is what it's about. Apparently I'm making financial and political gain. Well, I'm not a politician, so how can I be making political gain? Have I stood for political office? How have I made financial gain? And he used parliamentary privilege to hide behind because he can't make these allegations outside. Where have I spread hate, racism and disinformation? Where? Where have I spread racism? Is objecting to the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of working-class white girls by Pakistani rape gangs me being racist? Am I the one being racist? No, I'm committed to my core values as I have been for the last 30 years. I give a shit about children and young people. I care about kids. I've spent my life working with children. And I'm a committed anti-racist, and I believe these are racially motivated offences. That through the donation site Buy Me a Coffee, first of all, Buy Me a Coffee is not a donation site. A donation site is what you pay when you contribute to charity. So Buy Me a Coffee is not a donation site. Buy Me a Coffee site is how creators across the board, podcasters, whoever, earn an income by saying, I put my content out, I share it freely, and if you find value in it, then perhaps buy me a coffee. That's not a donation. That's you choosing to pay if you find value. And go and have a look at my last Facebook page and every Facebook page. It'll say, if you find value in my work, if you find value in my work. And as for the £10,000 on Buy Me a Coffee since 2020, I've been doing this work for, well, here for 3.5 years now, coming up to 4 years. So that's right. And by the way, all of you know who've been with me on this journey that I use the Buy Me a Coffee money. I save it up and I'll buy a microphone, or I'll buy a light, or I'll buy a camera, or I'll buy a lens. That's what I use the Buy Me a Coffee money for. I save it up to buy equipment. So you can see what she's doing. It's just mudslinging, saying, I have a whole host of ulterior reasons. I have a whole host of ulterior... It's now no longer about the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children, because it's now been proved. It's now no longer about the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children. It's now about, well, his reasons for exposing it. And my reasons for exposing it, instead of accepting a 30-year track record of the work I do, you want to go and listen to an MP who's been caught neck deep in the scandal. This isn't journalism. This isn't in any way, shape or form journalism. She's not done with her questions. You've also, the word solicited is interesting. Donations, again, they're not donations. Go and have a look at Patreon, it's not donations. Subscriptions. I run a blog. You've seen it. Is it The Mill, Manchester Mill? What's it called? Joshy from The Mill. He wants you lot to pay for his content. Why is it that a privileged white middle class knob can happily say to you, £5 or £10 a month for you to read my content, but I can't say if you find value in my content and you want a bit more, because my content's free, by the way, but if you find value in it and a bit more analysis, then take up a subscription for £3 a month. I'm not allowed to do that, but they are. I'm not allowed to honestly, legally earn a living, but they are. What is it, Charlotte? Is it because I'm black I should be out there selling drugs? At one point, you sold Recusant 9 merchandise, including t-shirts and mugs. Sorry, I've not got a mug with me. It's nice. I brought my mug out. Why has this part of the page been deactivated? Why have I stopped selling t-shirts and mugs? She's a journalist. A local democracy, paid for by the BBC, wants to know why I've stopped selling t-shirts and mugs. I started selling t-shirts and mugs because people asked. For stuff. Some merchandise, they'd like a t-shirt, they'd like a mug, they'd like something. People asked. So I set up an Etsy page. The people who wanted mugs and the people who wanted t-shirts bought them. And once all the people who'd asked to buy, asked for merchandise, had bought the merchandise they wanted, I shut down that page. It's not complicated. That Etsy page, by the way, costs me $29 a month. Why would I pay $29 a month when the people who got the service, who wanted the service, have already got the service. All of you who wanted t-shirts at the time, you bought the t-shirts. I'm happy you managed to get the t-shirts, because all that is these companies, and these companies send out the t-shirts directly to you. Same with the mugs. Perhaps you wanted a t-shirt herself, Tony. Perhaps you wanted a t-shirt herself. Charlotte, if you wanted a t-shirt, tell me. If you want a mug, tell me. I'll set the site back up. If enough people want, say, no, Roger, I never got a chance first time round, I'll click the links again, and you can, leave it open for another couple of months for people to buy. How ridiculous is this? Charlotte Green wants to know why I stopped selling t-shirts and mugs. That you produced 15,000 Recusant 9 leaflets during the May 2022 local elections that described the candidate Arooj Shah as playing a disgraceful role in a council's cover-up of child abuse and the grooming and gang rape of working-class white girls from across Oldham. In a democracy, Charlotte Green, we are allowed to campaign against politicians. In a democracy, where that campaign is lawful and legal, there is nothing you or any one of your Labour Party scumbags can do about it. The leaflets I produced, Charlotte Green, were crowdfunded by the people of Oldham. The people of Oldham were disgusted at Arooj Shah's relationships with multiple Pakistani mobsters, including the getaway driver of the Oldham cop killer, Dale Cregan. We collectively believed it was in the interests of residents of Chadderton South, where Arooj Shah was a Labour Party councillor, that they know about these relationships, because you and your friends had helped cover it up. In a democracy, I don't have to come sticking my tongue out to see if I can stick it up your ass so you do something for me. I am quite capable of leading a campaign myself and working myself and supporting others and encouraging others to come and work alongside me. I don't have to doff my cap off to you and beg you to do what you should be doing anyway, because we know you won't be doing what you should be doing anyway, because if you had been doing what you've been doing anyway, the number of children in our town would not have been groomed and gang raped the way they had. Secondly, and specifically, you quote me as Arooj Shah, and referencing Arooj Shah, her disgraceful role in her council's cover-up of child abuse. Well, it's confirmed that Arooj Shah's council did cover up child abuse. And it's also confirmed that the grooming and gang rape of working-class white girls from across the town not only is historical, Arooj Shah in her last council meeting, in response to a public question, stood up and confirmed it was still happening now. She confirmed it was still happening now. So is there something specific you have as an issue, Charlotte Green, with me exercising my democratic right to campaign? Because it appears you have a problem, or those you represent have a problem. And of course, politicians fundraise for the work that they do. Politicians fundraise for the work that they do. The Labour Party, the Conservatives, they all ask for donations. I'm not asking for donations, I'm asking for people to pay me if they find value in their work. There's a difference. Question 13. If you're finding value in this, and I'm sorry, I'm just checking how many of you are watching. If you're one of the 171 of you who are viewing this and finding value in this, please like, please share, please buy me a coffee. If you find value in my work, buy me a coffee. That the Conservative Party has confirmed it is investigating the involvement of its 22 candidates with yourself following complaints about the content of those leaflets. Conservative Party can do what they want. I'm not a Conservative. First and foremost. Secondly, the insinuation here is there's an investigation following complaints about the contents of those leaflets. Charlotte Green, you know as well as I know, like your mates went to the Electoral Commission and they've been to the police to attempt to have me prosecuted. And that there was nothing illegal in those leaflets. Now, the key element of those leaflets, Charlotte Green, is that there was nothing illegal in those leaflets. And I had every right to crowdfund and distribute those leaflets. Why? You're not going to write that, are you? You're going to try and twist it. He's been investigated. Who's investigating me, Charlotte? No one's investigating me. They went running to the police. Matt Mann, Abrahams, stood in Parliament, cried. What you've got to accept, Charlotte Green, is that you might be a reporter or a journalist or whatever you want to call yourself. I am a veteran social justice campaigner with 30-year track record, of working on the front line in communities across the world. And those leaflets, in a democracy, are legal, and we have fought. We, as a nation, have fought, not just here, but across the world, for communities to exercise the same rights that I am exercising in my hometown. So the key there, Charlotte Green, is that those leaflets were lawful and legal. But you don't want to talk about that, do you? That the review published in June concluded that there had been no widespread cover-up for political benefit or child sexual exploitation, and this claim he had been making was untrue. If there had been no cover-up for political benefit, Charlotte Green, if there had, why is the word widespread in there? Why have you inserted that word widespread? You're a journalist. You understand the power of words and the importance of words. Why is the word widespread there? Does that mean you admit there have been some cover-up for political benefit? And then who determines what some is? Where's the line between some and widespread? These are your words. These are your words. These aren't my words. This is a screen grab of your email. So you're admitting to a cover-up. Just that it wasn't widespread enough for you. The review published in June, by the way, Charlotte, and you were in that meeting, so you know all too well. Malcolm Newson claimed there was not a cover-up on the basis that Oldham Council had provided them with no evidence of a cover-up. So those responsible for the cover-up had provided no evidence to Newsom of a cover-up, so Newsom accepted there wasn't a cover-up by those who actually had been covering up the crimes. And all of the failures were just accidental, were they? The lead communications officer, who now works at Oldham Council, whose wife worked at the Oldham Chronicle, who worked for McMahon, celebrating his big win of helping bury the story and make sure it wasn't run, of the shisha bars. So that wasn't a cover-up. What was it then, Charlotte, if that wasn't a cover-up? It's clearly a cover-up. And I am not the only person who's supporting a call for a public inquiry into what took place in Oldham. That Gary Ridgway describes your ask to have testimony heard in public as showing a complete lack of understanding about the impact on victims. Gary Ridgway is the co-author of Andy Burnham's Assurance Review, the sham review. I've never spoken to Gary Ridgway, so for him to say it's a complete lack of understanding about the impact on victims, Ridgway, I have a recording of Ridgway confirming he's a Labour Party man. He describes himself as a Labour Party man. I have a recording of Gary Ridgway describing himself in a conversation with Maggie Oliver as a Labour Party man. Secondly, I have a complete understanding of why I wanted my testimony heard in public, and that's because you and your mate were selectively handwriting bits that suited you. And witness after witness refused to sign off what you put in front of them. Those are facts, Gary Ridgway. And finally, I'll tell you what is a complete lack of understanding about the impact on victims. The QC in Telford, when he shared his genuinely independent investigation into the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children in Telford, under very similar circumstances to Oldham. The QC in Telford made it very clear that one of the key purposes of a report that he led, one of its key aims was to make sure that those who had been failed and whose crimes against them had been covered up, the report was a chance for their stories to be told. What had happened to them, it was a chance for what had happened to them to be shared. And the reckoning came, the justice came, because finally, by sharing their stories of the victims firsthand with the rest of us, it helped in their journey towards closure. So if I have that understanding on the impact of victims, and I believe the QC in Telford, of the importance of sharing the testimonies of victims, why have you, Gary Ridgway and Malcolm Newsom, comprehensively hidden every testimony from the victim, apart from Samantha, who you had to take because Maggie Oliver got involved, but all the others, forget hiding it, you didn't even go and speak to any of them, did you? How many testified, Newsom? How many victims did you speak to? 0. How many of their stories did you share in your report? 0. I'll tell you who's got no respect, you piece of shit. It's you. You're a cover-up merchant. You're a Labour Party man cover-up merchant. The only person who's not got no respect for victims in this is you. It's not me. That you state there have been thousands of girls that have been abused in Oldham by grooming gangs, and B, with the knowledge and complicity of the council and police. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands? I have no idea. I'll tell you what, though. Why did that review not confirm how many children in that time-limited scope it had? So it said that we can only look at it between here, and we can only look at it in these situations. Even then, Ridgway and Newsman did not provide a number. In the absence of the authorities providing a number, members of the public will only speculate, can only speculate. And I do believe a government inquiry into CSE in Oldham and in our public inquiry will confirm a number. A public inquiry will confirm a number. And remember, in her last council meeting as leader, Arut Shah stood up and said, white working class girls are still being gang raped, groomed and gang raped today. She admitted it. That Gary Ridgway says their investigation did not find the scale of grooming in Oldham was anything like Rotherham. The Rotherham inquiry investigated a 10-year period and it found 1,400 children, at least 1,400 children over 10 years. If Gary Ridgway says that their investigation in Oldham did not find that the scale of grooming in Oldham was anything like Rotherham, well then Gary, who by the way, whose investigation only covered, I think was it 3 years, and only in a set series of situations, well come on Gary, what was the number? Come on, Ridgway. If it was nothing like Rotherham, which over 10 years identified 1,400 children, what was it in Oldham over your three-year time scale? What was it? Let's have the number, Ridgway. Come on, Ridgway, where are you? And Charlotte Green should be asking those questions. Well, what's the number? You want to mudsling at me? Well, you tell me how many children were raped. I'll tell you what, I think one is one too many, by the way. But let's have the number. Let's have the number. How many of our children were groomed and gang raped, Charlotte Green? Is that not the question you should be asking, Gary Ridgway? Instead of twisting this as though I've said something untoward? That Amanda Chadderton, leader of Oldham Council, says, I have created a toxic environment where racism, misogyny, hate speech and conspiracy theories run wild, and very little of it bears any resemblance to the truth. For over 4 years now, if I had been speaking lies, they would have had me locked up in prison by now, and they have tried. They've got Operation Hexagon, an unlawful joint Greater Manchester Police and Oldham Council operation to try and criminalise me, and that every opportunity has failed to do so. If I had been lying, I would have been in prison by now. They claimed I was lying over the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children. It's now confirmed true. They claimed I was lying, that it was for political purposes, it was kept hidden. Yet the politicians in charge of our town are refusing to support a call for a public inquiry. I am not the one creating this environment, Amanda Chadderton. You're the one who got up in a council meeting and claimed that being gang raped did not destroy the lives of victims. And then, off the back of that statement, followed up by Clint Piffian standing up and saying an independent inquiry or public inquiry is a waste of money. You and your Labour Party colleagues rewrote a motion blocking a vote calling for a public inquiry. I'll tell you who's creating racism, misogyny, hate speech. It's you and your Labour Party politicians that have run this town into the ground. Exactly, Sean. So she should be asking the questions there, but she's been paid to do a hatchet piece on me, is what it is. Apparently, I'm a rampant narcissist, and I'm compared to Donald Trump. I'm a thin-skinned individual. Well, Charlotte, compared to Amanda Chadderton, I can see why Amanda Chadderton would use the word thin to describe me, because I'm not a... She wants to call me a rampant narcissist and call me names. I can call her names as well, can't I? It works both ways. Thin-skinned individual. I goad people to become angrier. No, I educate people to exercise their democratic right and vote. What have I been doing with all of you from the beginning? Vote, vote, vote. And apparently I won't be happy until people are rioting again. No. I won't be happy until those who are responsible for the Pakistani rape gangs to operate unimpeded in this town for decades are held to account and brought to justice. I won't be happy until we know exactly who failed our children, where they failed our children, how they failed our children, and these individuals are held to account and systems and processes put in place to make sure this can never happen again. Amanda Chadderton is accusing all of you of being racist. As a Liberal Democrat councillor, I said that people who use people's pain and suffering to raise money or to promote their own interests should be ashamed of themselves. It was the Saddleworth Western Lee Liberal Democrat guy, forget his name. And you know why he attacked me? It's because I exposed what Charlotte Green should have done. I exposed that the Lib Dem councillor Rod Blythe was a convicted child sex offender. And that information was hidden from you only with the complicity of Charlotte Green, the local democracy reporter, who never reported it, right? And all of her publications. That is what Charlotte Green and her friends have done. They hid from you a Liberal Democrat politician who is a convicted child sex offender. And if I hadn't released that, and it's Kenyon, Mark Kenyon, owns a kitchen shop, I think, in Failsworth. Mark, how about I come and hang outside your kitchen shop and hand out leaflets, raising awareness of your party's role in the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children? How much business do you think you'll have? So they covered it up. And I then submitted a Freedom of Information request that the council refused to answer. I took it to a tribunal regarding where had Rod Blythe had access to children. In his role as councillor for 20 years, where he sat on a whole host of school governing bodies, scout movements, you name it, he did it all. Where did he have access to children? tribunal forced the council to say they had to respond to me, and they responded to me by saying it's not in the public interest. Apparently, you knowing where a convicted child sex offender politician had access to children in Oldham is not in the public interest. Now, that is the story Charlotte Green should be writing. But she isn't. And she isn't writing that because she's part of the cover-up. So I'm not at all surprised that a Lib Dem councillor wants to also attack me. Because the Lib Dems, worse than protecting child sex offenders and Pakistani rape gangs, the Lib Dems in Oldham had a councillor, a 20-odd years councillor, who was then convicted of child sex offences, and they all worked together to keep it hidden. And her last question, that you do not live in Oldham but rather in Mosley, Tameside. And we know where this comes from, it's the malicious one. Charlotte Green, a quick look on her bio on Twitter, and she's clearly bisexual or gay. You know, she's a... And I have no issue with that, before anyone says anything. And in the world we now live in a recent council meeting, Amanda Chatterton got up and said she supports people who, people can self-identify their gender. So we now live in a world where a man can describe himself, self-identify as a woman, and a woman can self-identify as a man. And Charlotte Green would support that. Amanda Chatterton supports that, and the liberals, fake liberals I call them, like Charlotte Green, they support that. A man can identify as a woman, and a woman can identify as a man. And I'm not sharing my opinion on that, I'm sharing with you their position statement on that. And in a world where a man can identify as a woman and a woman can identify as a man, and they're okay with that, Charlotte Green and her mates struggle with me identifying myself as an Oldhamer. I'm 50 years old next year. Over 40 years of my life have been spent a combination of living and working in Oldham. And I identify myself as an Oldhamer. Now, on what basis does Charlotte Green and Amanda Chatterton or any of their kind have a problem with that? Let's look at Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon only moved to Failsworth in the lead up to him becoming a councillor. Jim from Oldham is his Twitter handle. He's not from Oldham. He's from Newton Heath. Let's look at Debbie Abrahams, the MP. Debbie Abrahams is not from Oldham. Why is Charlotte Green not writing an article on where Debbie Abrahams lives, or where Jim McMahon lives, or claims he's from Oldham before when he wasn't? We know what this is about. And this last question gets us to really what it's all been about all the time. It's an attempt to discredit me. It's an attempt to slur my good name and impeccable character. And of course, it's an attempt to try and impact my ability to impact upon, or limit my ability to impact upon, the 2023 all-out elections. And Charlotte Green has been recruited by her friends in the Labour Party to try and smear me. and questioning how I identify where I come from. The simple fact is, it would not matter where I came from. It should not matter where I come from. What matters is that these politicians and their friends in the mainstream media and Greater Manchester Police have all worked together to cover up the grooming and gang rape of working class white girls in our town. And if the reason isn't to protect themselves and their political positions, well, if that's not the reason, what is it? This is my right to reply to Charlotte Green. I sent her the link to the video. So feel free, Charlotte. And if you misquote me or twist anything I've said, Charlotte, I'm very clear on what I'll do. I'll come to your house. I'll hand out leaflets to all of your neighbours. I'll put posters up on walls. The shops you go to. I will do everything you do to me tenfold. Because in the end, there are only two sides to this. Those who protected our children and those who helped facilitate the grooming and gang rape of working class white girls in our town. Nothing else. No ambiguity. Nothing else. If you find value in my work, please consider buying me a coffee, sharing the transmissions. Look forward to Charlotte Green's articles at some point this week. I will go and stand outside the Annie Kenney statue. And I'm happy to sit there and autograph what she writes about me. And I'll leave it with my friend Oldham. We have a team where a journalist thinks Costa is caught and an MP who thinks Newton Heath is Oldham. Surprised they can find their own backsides. My name is Raja Mir. These are Recusant 9 transmissions. And I think it's very clear by now. Amanda Chadderton, Jim McMahon, Arood Shah, Irish Imi, Debbie Abrams, Abdul Jabbar, Zahid Chauhan, Barrelgate Bashforth, Mrs. Bashforth. We have them on the run. We have them on the run.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.